welcome back to another episode of the Flying Upstream show. Today is all about the transformational power of near death experiences and how these moments have a tendency to shape our lives in one way or another. If you are on the edge of life, it can also awaken you to your deepest truth. Today, we are exploring what it means to walk an authentic path, to connect with unseen realms, and embrace healing at a soul level. Whether you've had a spiritual awakening of your own or are simply curious about what lies beyond the veil, this conversation will offer insight, inspiration, and a reminder that even our most challenging experiences can lead us back to who we truly are.
Our guest today is Kristyn Marie. Kristyn Marie is a gifted healer and spiritual guide whose journey began with a profound near death experience at just 9 years old, an event that opened her connection to the spirit world and awakened her intuitive gifts. With a background as a registered nurse and deep roots in energy healing, plant spirit medicine, and sound therapy, Kristyn bridges the spiritual and earthy realms to help others reconnect with their true selves. Through vibrational tools, grounded guidance, and a heart centered approach, she empowers others to heal, awaken, and embody their own sacred path. Kristyn Marie, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would love to talk about your near death experience. How was that experience, especially at such a young age? How did that transpire for you? And like, when did you realize that that's what was happening?
Well, I'll say when I was 9 years old, I had this moment where essentially I woke up and then I couldn't breathe. And I was rushed to the hospital, and my right lung was starting to collapse or was collapsing already. And what that means is essentially when your lung collapses, there's lack of oxygen being transmitted to your brain and your body and your cells and your organs. And so your entire body, your organs, your heart begin to shut down. And I remember being in the emergency room going into emergency surgery, where essentially, like, the surgeon had to come in and start to open me up while I was still conscious and not under anesthesia, which was, I remember just being in so much fear and terror. And essentially, like, after, like, I have the moment of, like, him coming to start to open me up, and then I went, like, dark. And then as I went dark, I was going deep into the void, and all of a sudden, I saw luminary light and energy and was surrounded by these multicolored, beings of light, which to me represented and is a connection to my angels, my guides. Um, and when I woke up from that experience and came back to more so my body and to the 3D reality, I didn't understand that is what I experienced. I was so young. So, like, but I knew I met angels. Like, I knew that the connection to angels was like there and forming. And so in my internal world, I was like, oh, I want to be an angel. I want to be someone that's there to support people during their darkest hour. And so that's why I started to become a nurse, because I thought that was like the angel that I was being asked to become, essentially. And it wasn't, I don't want to say that the nurses that did take care of me weren't angels, because I actually believe they were angels in earthly form. They were like a representation of the luminary angels that I saw in my near death experience. Um, but yeah, so I followed that path. And then in my early 20s, when I had that career as a nurse, I realized that I was actually out of alignment with what my soul was really feeling called towards, as far as being in service and sharing, my gifts and my light. And there was like this whole spiritual awakening that I had where I was suicidal. I was so disconnected from my truth. And and all of the trauma that I forgot that happened to me at a young age started to come back bit by bit. And I started to remember piece by piece some of the really challenging things that I had gone through. And as I was remembering the trauma, I actually started to remember the gifts that I had, which was a deep connection to the spirit world. And I think that's what kind of can happen when you have a traumatic experience. You might forget the trauma, but you also might forget the actual positive things or the wisdom or the lessons or the learnings or the teachings that come with the trauma as well. So as I started to understand and reawaken back to my connection to the spirit world, I mean, that just opened up so much more understanding about myself, about what I was called here to do, and the light that I was here to discover, not only within myself, but support others in doing the same.
That's truly incredible, and especially to have experienced that at such a young age is so significant. And I especially appreciate that you said you had this experience and it impacted your life, but then you had kind of that moment in your 20s where you realized that you were out of alignment, and taking that time to check in with yourself, remember all sorts of things that were able to kind of put you back on your path, it sounds like. I'm curious to know, in the moment of your near death experience, did you feel like you had a choice? Was there that sensation, or was it just totally out of your hands? This was happening to you, you saw the lights, and that was it? Or was there a choice that you could come back to your body, or you could continue on to the spirit world?
Yeah, so I actually just recently wrote about this, and when I was writing about it, I realized how hard it was to like put myself back into the memory of it happening, because as much as it was beautiful, it was also super painful. And I also believe that like when we write, our subconscious meets our conscious, and our heart meets our body, and there's so much more that can be revealed if we just kind of get our mind out of the way. And so as I was writing verbatim about what was happening, the message that I received was, wow, this is like peace unlike I've ever known when I was with my angels. This is what felt like to be safe and protected, like I had been in the womb, or I had been in previous lifetimes, where there was like this I would say, yeah, this piece of like, I am free, I'm liberated. There's nothing that can hurt me anymore. And there was what felt like a choice point of, I can be here and accept this as my fate of like peace and safety and protection, liberation. Okay, yes. And then yet there was this question of, can you take all of this back home with you to the 3D world and be in service to the greater collective, the consciousness, evolution, the essentially being the light worker that you're really here to be. And it didn't feel like it was a mental choice. It wasn't like, yes, I will choose, but it felt like my soul, my spirit chose for me, if that makes sense. It was like, okay, yes, I'm coming back. And I think that's challenging to even reckon with, because when I was in that feeling of being connected with my angels and my guides, I really wasn't in my body. It felt like I was weightless. It felt like I was not a bodysuit anymore. It just felt like I was floating in, the higher realms, and I had become like an angelic being, essentially. And then, so what has been part of my work and continuing to be part of my work is really actually calling all parts of my soul, my spirit that really long to be in that protective, safe, peaceful space back into this body, back home, and developing the safety within myself to call all those parts back home. And that's what I call soul retrieval work. So I'm gonna pause there. I know that's a lot, but yeah, I think that answers your question.
I have A question kind of following up on that is, you mentioned that it didn't feel like a mental choice, that it was like your soul chose for you. Have you reflected or been able to reflect as to why your soul chose to come back to this life?
Yeah, I mean, I have like full body chills. I honestly believe that there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of um, untouched potential within me that is in support of the greater collective. And I say this with like, there's almost like a sense of responsibility. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm, the prophecy or like someone here to like save the world or whatever, but it feels like my soul has a destiny that's connected to responsibility of supporting in the evolution of my communities, of the collective, in whatever way that it's being asked to. And so yeah, it kind of feels like I mean, it's a free will of choice in my day-to-day life to continue to honor that. But yeah, it just feels like it's a path that is laid out for me, and I now get to choose whether or not I want to walk towards it or not.
I so appreciate that free will aspect that you're saying, that you get to choose if you want to walk towards it or not. Um, I'm curious to know how your experience and your path forward, what you're walking towards, has changed the relationships with other people in your life, that maybe once you felt connected to people, and now after this experience or recollecting it anyway, that you're feeling some distance there, or new relationships that have popped up.
Mm. Well, I feel like a big teaching of what I'm learning in this lifetime, which is connected to like karmic, you know, ties and contracts in previous lifetimes, is how to really not abuse my power and how to really be in integrity with my power and to know my power, but not to overpower others and not to manipulate or, do my very best to just be in right relationship with power. Because I think as someone that is considers herself as a healer or someone that may consider themselves a leader, there is the sense of, yeah, you do have some authority, you do have some um, maybe experience or wisdom to share that could support other people, but how can you be in right relationship to it so it doesn't take another person's power away from themselves? And I feel like that is just when I think about, my relationship with my parents, my father particularly, when I think about other people in my life that I have given my power over to subconsciously, there's been this learning and this teaching of how can I be really responsible and not do that to others in a way that that could be harmful. And I think can be a big concern in what you could say the leadership or the healership world. Um, and it's a very humbling process. I mean, it's a practice, an awareness, it's a constant checking in with myself, and using my guides as support to make sure that if I do find myself, making a mistake, that I can forgive and I can choose differently next time. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was what intuitively came to me.
I loved it. I personally loved that response. And it brought me back to something that you said at the beginning when you shared your experience when you were 9 years old and what you saw. And I wonder, are those guides, so your guides today, your angels today, are they the same ones that you saw and experienced when you had that near death experience at 9 years old?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel them right now. I have full body chills. They are like my council, my army. But I've also accumulated so many more guides. I work with plant spirit guides, I work with animal guides. And so I feel like essentially the frequency of what these angels are, I'm connected to in other forms that might just look different, like, owl medicine or ayahuasca medicine or whatever it is, that it might shapeshift into something else. But absolutely, yeah, I still connect with them this day.
I love that. Thank you.
So tell us more about the plant side of this, the plant spirits and the medicine you just mentioned.
Mm. Ooh, yeah. I mean, I have a deep reverence for and deep honoring for plant medicines, not only because I believe they have supported me in helping me remember my truth, remember my connection to, my true essence, and also these beings that are always here supporting me and guiding me. And also, they've really supported me and disidentifying from what I would call the trauma story and really coming into my empowerment. And I say this, even we can connect it to the near death experience, because something like that I could have either chosen for that to be essentially that trauma that happened to me to happen to me versus for me. And I could have chosen to say and to be in the victim of the poor me, and then why did this happen to me, and da 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 da, which it can be very comfortable to stay in. Or I could choose differently, like I said, and really choose to see and open myself up to, oh, there's something greater here to learn. There's something greater here to gain from something that was awful, something that was super painful. And so I feel like the connection to my, plant medicine teachers, and I can name them, like ayahuasca is a huge master teacher for me. I work with mushrooms. I work with wachuma cactus medicine. I work with mother cacao and rose, like all these different plant essences just show you what's already inside of you. They are a mirror for the power, the love, the light, the shadow, the all of it that you are made up of. And to see myself in that truth through their mirroring has been such a powerful process in continuing to understand who I am, and so that I can know how to be in right relationship and in alignment with that true essence that lives inside of me.
And when you say to continue to show you who you are, to you, is that who you are at soul level so that you can express that here in the 3D?
Yeah, and it's a constant. It feels like it's a constant changing. Like once I discover, okay, this is a part of me, or this is an essence of my true self, then like another thing appears, and then I get to kind of work with that layer. I'm like, okay, does this feel in alignment? Is this fear and doubt and shame and guilt that I've been tangled up in feel like part of my true essence? Or is it actually something that's very much a distortion? And then I get to kind of play with that, right? And so I am here to say that I have not mastered the truth of who I am, but I am a student of that, and I will forever be.
I really love that this is this whole life experience for you is learning, that there's so far no end to it. You're still reviewing yourself and where you are. Are you in alignment? What does that look like for you going forward? And then focusing on giving that gift to others, I think is so beautiful. Um, I'm curious to know too, when you um, when you were having this experience. Okay, sorry if this is like a totally cheesy question, but I have to ask. Okay, in the movies, right, when people have these kinds of experiences, you always see all like their life flashes before their eyes, kind of all like a little clips of their life, the good things, the bad things, or that kind of thing. Did that happen for you?
Mm. I don't think that's a cheesy question. I think that makes sense as to why you're asking it all. But No, I did not have that. I believe actually my near death experience wasn't like what you see in the movies, because usually someone might think of a near death experience of like, okay, their entire body shut down. They were dead for like 10 minutes or something. And I will be honest with you, I have no idea what happened on a physiological level to my body when I had this encounter with my angel spirits. So it wasn't like my life flashed before my eyes in any way. It was just, it felt like it was a homecoming. It was like, okay,
Mm.
this is who you are, and this is essentially what you're meant to bring back into the 3D world. And it's interesting, as I'm sharing this is why I love talking about it, because even new revelations come. I felt like up until that point, like of nine, like living on this earth in 9 years, I mean, I will say I had experienced every kind of abuse you could have possibly imagined a child to experience that would be horrific and awful, and neglect, and just malnourishment and all of that. And I felt like the near death experience was an initiation. It was like those 9 years felt like it was like the descent into the underworld, and continuously getting pummeled and shooken up, and layer by layer by layer, like just. And I was so young and so innocent, like, there was really no control that I had, so it was like the surrender to control of whatever was happening, and then having this, what I say, an initiation into a whole new understanding of myself, and I would not have changed what happened those 9 years for anything, because there was so much that I learned, and it got me to where I am today. And so I believe that what we go through ultimately can support us in shaping who we are, but it doesn't have to be who we are.
Mm.
And I think that's a really important message for people that might feel like they've had really traumatic or troubled experiences. And it's not to undermine what they went through, to say, oh, I never want to say that being abused or being neglected or having these atrocities happen was a positive thing, and yet it can lead to potential of positive things happening in your life, and knowing that there's so much more um, there's so much more possibility than the trauma that happened. There's a lot to gain from it if you choose to see it, and if you choose to really understand and go through the depths, I would say, of the dark void, and to kind of dissolving the illusion of what has made you think who you are, and to really understanding and to coming back home to yourself. And again, like I said, I think it's a lifelong process, but plant medicines can be a huge ally in supporting that process move along a little bit quicker. I will say.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I had a spiritual awakening recently in the last like 3 years, and also kind of like what you shared, I had a very traumatic childhood. Um, and I wonder, what is your opinion on why, for example, your initiation, your near death experience happened for you at such a young age versus for someone like me at a much later age, despite kind of the preparation, I guess is what I'd like to call it, being similar in the beginning of our lives. Why do you think that happens?
I would say it's really connected to our karma. I believe our souls choose our parents and choose what we will actually be birthed into, out of a means to learn the lessons that we are supposed to learn. So again, like I kind of mentioned, like I was born with a father that abused his power in every level. And although I will say it's absolutely not my fault that he did what he had done, and yet there is a karmic contract that him and I have. So he was here to teach me about clearing that karma from a past life. And again, the not abusing my power. And so I believe we're all here on our own individual journeys. We all have these contracts, these soul agreements. And sometimes a lesson comes really early on. Sometimes a lesson comes later on. It just really depends. Yeah, so I would say that's probably why I would say it's a little bit different. But, you also have to remember, like, after I had my initiation, like, I completely abandoned that remembrance until I had my, like, spiritual awakening in my early 20s. So it was, like, 13 years of forgetting about my truth and forgetting about my gifts and my connection to the spirit world. Like, I was not in practice of that until again, I was healing from an abusive relationship that I had found myself in college. And I was completely heartbroken and completely, I felt in a victim state of like, why me? I just like can't do this anymore. And then I was shook awake to see, oh, okay, this is connected to something so much older. And also, this person is here to be a teacher for me of, again, the same lesson. So, yeah, it's a mystery still.
I love that.
So, for our listeners out there who have not had a near-death experience or an awakening, what would you tell them? What is something that you could share with them, like a way that they can still have that connection to our spirit worlds without going through a near-death experience? What's some advice or some tips that you would tell them?
Yeah, well, I will say I believe that we are going through many deaths and many rebirths throughout our entire life. Whether that feels like, it comes from out of the blue and all of a sudden everything I've believed about myself dissolves and I'm left to question who am I and what is my purpose and why am I here? Or again, maybe going through a divorce or maybe going through a very traumatic experience is what wakes up that person to like, oh wow, there's something so much more greater happening here that I'm not even aware of. So I think it's just really being aware, and like the practice of gaining that awareness is crucial. And it's a practice. And so I say like awareness comes from self-inquiry and silence and stillness. And for me, that self-inquiry began with meditation. And it doesn't have to be so it doesn't have to be you're like an hour on your, cushion every day, like praying like the monks do or whatever. It can just be 5 minutes of silence while you're in the bathtub or on a walk, or doing the dishes, and just kind of watching your thoughts turn and watching what happens to your body as these thoughts are forming, and watching the stories that you might be telling yourself about yourself. And then start to question, does this actually feel true and aligned with my soul essence? Or is this something that, I picked up from a parental figure or a teacher or conditioning from society that is actually not mine, or that's actually not connected to my truth? And so I think like easy ways of integrating that into your day-to-day life can actually be a huge part of having a big breakthrough and a big awakening. But it starts with, I think, awareness and just exploration of what's happening inside of you already.
I love that. And this conversation is so amazing. But as we begin to wrap up, I know you shared earlier about plant medicine, and I'd love to kind of end it on this note because I think this is something that is so powerful and so helpful. But I think in general and as a society, we really don't place as much value on plant medicine as, for example, someone like you does, right? Who who uses it for healing and is aware of its benefits, what would you say, or how would you say someone could start working with plant medicine, like a new beginner, the same person that we talked about in terms of like just digging in and what to do, that you just shared? What could someone do with plants or plant medicine to help them kind of in that same exploration, or when they're ready to perhaps maybe go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, so I believe that plants are our teachers. They are wisdom keepers. They are here to give us and to not only give us, but receive from us. So it's not even just about using plant medicine, but it's about being in relationship with plant medicine. So if you feel like, oh, wow, somehow I just feel called to drinking rose tea, right? It's a plant, it's the highest vibrational plant there is actually in the world. So that's a great place to start. Or blue lotus, or even dandelion, something very simple that we all have access to in our Western world. Start there and just start to drink it every day and start to have a conversation with it. Start to connect to it like you would a friend. You can ask it questions. You can give yourself time to listen. You can just, again, explore in those ways and see what they have to share with you. And maybe also see what you have to offer it. So maybe if it shares with you, like sometimes I'll receive a song or a poem or a nugget of knowledge that, oh, I get to take with me throughout my day. Well, I'm going to offer it back something. So generosity, right? I'm going to offer it back love. I'm going to offer it back gratitude. I'm going to offer it, like on my altar, I give it like essentially tobacco or incense or something that there's an exchange, an energy exchange for what they have given me. And so, right, you kind of like a friend, like you give a gift, they give a gift. Like it doesn't have to be so black and white like that, but play around with it. And honestly, if there's a desire to access these types of experiences and you're kind of like, oh, it feels a little bit unfamiliar to do that by myself, seek out a guide, seek out a mentor. I mean, I am one of them, but I'm not the only one. So find someone that you might resonate with that can support you in guiding you to develop a relationship with these plants that could be ultimately life changing.
That's incredible. You had me at plants. Thank you. I'm a big plant person. I am absolutely going to look into this. Yes, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening, and I really want to thank you for sharing your story with us and our whole audience. Thank you for joining us for this powerful conversation to our free spirits on transformation, healing, and the journey back to our authentic selves. May it
Mhm.
serve as a reminder that even in life's most unexpected moments, there can be clarity, purpose, and profound connection. And for our free spirits out there, as always, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep flying upstream. Until next time.